of the Universal Peace Federation, USA, and also director of this Interreligious Association for Peace and Development, IAPD Peace Forum. IAPD is a project of the Universal Peace Federation, which is an NGO in general consultative status with Economic and Social Council of the United Nations. This IAPD forum is a part of a broader effort to understand and present the challenges facing the people of North and South Korea with commitment and hope toward lasting peace in the Korean Peninsula. The co-founders of the Universal Peace Federation, the late Reverend Samuel Moon and the wife, the Dr. Hak Jae-han Moon, visited North Korea in December in 1991 for a then unimaginable personal meeting with North Korea's great leader, Kim Il-sung, in a dramatic effort to initiate a reconciliation of the two nations. The UPF continued to pursue its efforts by seeking a peaceful solution to peace in the Korean Peninsula. We're pleased to have with us today wonderful speakers on this vital subject: reconciliation and commitment to peace, transforming the DMZ into a peace park on the Korean Peninsula and creating sisterhood cities of peace. Now, I'm happy to invite Dr. Michael Jenkins, President of the UPF International and the Chairman of UPF North America. So please welcome Dr. Jenkins. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Vice President Duggan, for all this work that you're doing to bring the best and brightest experts on peace, especially focused on Northeast Asia and bringing dialogue and understanding and between North Korea, South Korea, and also even considering a peace park in the United Nations. Our first speaker comes to us by way of the Women's Federation for World Peace. We're going to show her video message. Dr. Anna Grichting-Solder is a PhD in urbanism at Harvard University. She's a Swiss architect, urbanist, and musician, and graduated with a Doctor of Design from Harvard. I am passionate about designing with and not against nature and Mother Earth, and going beyond our anthropocentric view of the world to include all living organisms in balanced development. She was recently teaching at Qatar University, mainly to female students who were committed to empowering and inspiring to become future leaders in the fields of sustainable and holistic architecture. It's quite an amazing background. I'm interested in multidisciplinary research and projects that bring together the arts, sciences, engineering, and my research focuses on regenerative urban systems, food urbanism, urban biodiversity in dry lands, blue urbanism and water-sensitive urban design, ecological planning and conflict landscapes, urban legacies of mega events, public art and public space. Her projects and research have taken her to Europe, from Europe to Iran from Europe to Iran, Cyprus, Korea, Japan, Australia, the Balkans, Turkey, and the USA. My professional experience includes working for the mayor's office in Geneva and the Aga Khan Trust for Culture. I've produced and performed with the musical projects Desert Bridges in Qatar, Sufi Moon in Pakistan, and Border Meetings in Switzerland, and have just recently created Anna Jazz and Rose's Trio in Geneva. We'd like to introduce at this time by video, thanks to the Women's Federation for World Peace, Dr. Anna Grichting-Solder.
Give me a second.
We are used to challenges, but we will go forward and solve these problems. Thank you. To our audience, please be patient with us for another moment. Here we go. Well, I think we may have to move on and come back to Dr. Solder, if we might.
Mhm.
I think it's probably necessary to just go forward. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we should go ahead
All right,
to
let's go ahead and we'll come
I'm
back.
sorry, the video somehow it's not running. Sorry. Give me a few
No
seconds.
problem. No problem. We'll get it working hopefully by the end of the program. Well, at this time, I'd like to introduce our next speaker. J. Frederick Arment is the founder and chair of the Board of International Cities of Peace, author of 4 books. His nonfiction work includes The Elements of Peace, How Nonviolence, War, released by McFarland Academic Publishers in 2012, and The Economics of Peace, Freedom, the Golden Rule, and Broadening Prosperity, released in the fall of 2014. As lead facilitator of the International Cities of Peace, he stewards the Member Association of Self-Established Cities of Peace, of which there are nearly 400 in 71 countries. It's a profound development. In 2017, as a result of an International Cities of Peace Alliance for Southeast Asia, Mr. Arment was engaged in pro bono work as distinguished researcher in the Institute of National Memory and International Peace Studies. In 2020, he visited the Republic of South Korea to welcome Pocheon as the 256th city of peace. Busan and also Gwangmyeong are the second and third on the Korean Peninsula. Let us welcome at this time Mr. J. Frederick Arment. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to everyone on the call. As I was introduced, J. Frederick Arment, about 14 years ago, we developed the idea, not of a city of peace, because the city of peace is actually ancient in its origin. So what we've done is created a movement of cities of peace around the world, and I want to talk to you about that. But I bring good wishes from 373 cities of peace in 70 countries on all 6 continents. We're affiliated with the ECOSOC, the NGO body for the United Nations. We've been very successful, and I want to talk to you about why I believe we're successful and how it relates to peace on the Korean Peninsula. We have a revolutionary solution to the Korean Peninsula, and it's called respect. Respect is the essence of International Cities of Peace. We respect all peoples, all countries. We respect the commonality of the human being in their yearning for peace. And we have a tendency to have a small central organization, because it's actually the cities of peace around the world that create this vast network of cities of peace. And we don't claim the ideal of cities of peace. The ideal of cities of peace is ancient. Some cities are actually named. Jerusalem actually is a city of peace, and there's one in Ukraine. So we don't claim a lot. What we do is we empower. We empower people through this one revolutionary concept called respect. We respect the leadership in the community. We don't tell anyone how to find peace, because each of you in your community knows the needs of your community, and you're the one that actually creates the initiatives, the grassroots organizations to create more peace in the world. The only thing we have to do is empower the peacemakers rather than the warmongers, the ones who are violent. So International Cities of Peace has been very successful. You can go to our website. It's very amazing. We have web pages for all the cities of peace around the world. And they show the goals and the vision and the mission that each of them have. So we respect the leadership. We respect the in situ leadership within a community. In other words, in the situation. We don't tell anyone how to find peace, because everyone knows how to find peace, but there's these impediments that are created because we have less power as peacemakers in the world. So, each of the cities, including the ones in Republic of South Korea, have a unique history. They have a unique culture. Sometimes the economic system is unique and separate from one country to another. Sometimes the governmental systems are unique, but we must look deeper. We must look at respecting people and the in situ leaders and the families and the children. And that's what International Cities of Peace does. In 2020, the year 2020, I came to the Republic of South Korea, and it was celebrating the establishment of Poshan as the first city of peace in the Republic of South Korea. And the reason it's very important is it has an amazing case study for how to create peace on the Korean Peninsula. There's a river that runs from North Korea to South Korea. And that river is the Hantangong River. And it's a beautiful, large river, and it goes through North Korea and slides through to South Korea and Poshan. And what they wanted to do is they wanted to create a city-to-city relationship with the cities in North Korea and the cities in South Korea because of this natural river that flowed between them. So peace can flow just like that river. And that was the intent of Poshan. One of the big objectives of Poshan City of Peace was to establish this idea that links the environment to each of the cities. So I want to show you just a little bit. I won't have too many slides, but I want to show you a little bit about the deeper knowledge of what City of Peace is and how it relates to the Korean Peninsula. So if I can get this very quickly. Can you see that? Okay, great. Revolutionary solution, respect. We are on 6 continents. The ICP strategic plan envisions 1,000 cities of peace around the world by the year 2025, and we're on track for that. We're up to 400, and we're engaging some new technology to be able to do this faster, less manual input. So the Korean Peninsula, how many cities of peace could there possibly be? The northern Korean Peninsula, how many cities of peace could we find in collaboration? Non-agenda driven, non-political, just respect. That's all it is. Just relationships between people, relationships between the environment. And so, the Korean Peninsula offers a great case study on how we can work together. But the association is all over the world. We've been very successful in finding, whether it's socialism or capitalism or Muslim or Christian, it's all about the common yearning of people for peace, and that's what creates the network of the ideal of cities of peace around the world. So there are 3 cities now in the Republic of Korea. Poshan was the first one, and that's the river that runs through it and connects very intimately the North Korea and the South Korea. Busan, the second largest city in Korea, and they have a very, very respectful idea of honoring those that have fallen. And is there something that North Korea and South Korea, is different? The respect for the people who have given their lives for what they believe is peace in the world. It's very commonality. Even the soldiers and the police force, and it's all about peace. We're all struggling for peace. We all see these impediments of violence, and we're trying to work through those. Gwangmyeong is also the third city of peace, and they're connecting the Korean Peninsula with a railroad, the Peace
Are you
Railroad.
showing other slides, other photos?
Excuse me?
We cannot see other photos.
You can see the 3 here.
Mm-mm.
Oh, you're not able to see that? I'm sorry. Well, one good thing is that they on our website, we have all 3 cities of peace, and they have many, many photos. Can you see the slide 3 values? Can't see it at all?
No, on the cover page.
Okay. Well, let's go back to me. I'm not quite as good as a photo, but I'll tell you about it. So a little snafu there. But anyway, our website has individual web pages for Poshan, individual web pages for Busan, and all of the cities of peace in the Republic of South Korea will have a website. We'll have a page dedicated to their vision for peace. And one of the great things about International Cities of Peace is the city-to-city program. It's kind of like the Sister City program that is around the world. But this is a real grassroots collaboration. And we just had Aalborg, Denmark, which is a new city of peace. Their leadership went down to Uganda and met with 3 cities of peace in Uganda. So there's a collaboration between Denmark and Uganda now that is going to reap the benefits of that type of collaboration. In Buenos Aires, Argentina, there are 36 cities of peace that they have created throughout South and Central America. In Nanjing, China, which is our first city of peace in China, they created, have mentored 3 cities of peace in China now. But in 2020, because of the pandemic, they asked how they could provide some resources for other cities of peace, the city-city collaboration that is so important in the North and South Korea idea. And they provided many funds, many grant funds for 33 communities in Africa. So this is a grassroots action-oriented idea. And it doesn't have to be the mayor and the city council and the Rotary. It can be those, and it's better if it's those, but it's really family to family and the region and the country. It doesn't have much to do with our divisiveness. It doesn't have anything to do with our religions and our economic systems and our governmental systems that tend to be competitive with each other. We're not competitive in our yearning for peace. So what I'm presenting today is a solution that can work. It doesn't have to be shouted out. It can be subtle. It can be a family in North Korea and a family in South Korea that just finds common ground in the ideal of creating a city of peace. So as Poshan, as Busan, as Guangdong, as other cities in South Korea link with North Korea, that is beyond, that is deeper than the conflict between two countries and two systems. That is much deeper on a grassroots level, and I think it's something that we ought to pursue. And we should look to all of the people that we know in South Korea and pose this idea of creating cities of peace throughout the Republic of South Korea and linking it by family and by environment and by legacy and by history. And that's all you need. You don't need to do it formally. This is something that can be done. A city of peace, you can join the International Cities of Peace, which is a member organization, but a city of peace can be distinct, and it can be between cities, and the communication can be international, or city of peace can be a conduit between people who find commonality. So I'm gonna leave it to the other speakers right now, but I think this is a extremely good solution. It's based in respect, and that's what we have been missing in terms of the relationship between the two countries. So thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Armenta. Wonderful, wonderful. One element required, and that is respect. I think that we want to explore helping to support your efforts to bring more cities into the distinction of being cities of peace. That's a really tremendous, tremendous movement. And I know that once you start to identify with peace, the atmosphere changes. So thank you very much. And if we have
you're welcome.
time, we'll have some questions and answers at the end. Our next speaker is Mr. Kengo Kawa. He is the regional leader for the Collegiate Association for the Research of Principles, Los Angeles. And he cares for two local chapters at California State University, Long Beach, and the University of California in Irvine. He's an interning minister with the Los Angeles Family Church. He's working to create a global peace park in the demilitarized zone between North and South, pardon me, between North and South Korea, advocating for the establishment of the 5th United Nations office there. Now, I know others are working on this. This will strongly lead toward the unification of the Korean Peninsula. Welcome, Mr. Kengo Kawa.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jenkins, and for everyone here having me at this time. I will also share my screen. Okay. So yes, as noted and shared, my name is Kengo Kawa. I am representing on the side of the western coast of the United States from Los Angeles, California. And the project had the privilege to recently present at the IAYSB event called Synergy. The IAYSB standing for the International Association for Youth and Students for Peace. So just having that opportunity to share there and having this opportunity to share here, I'm very grateful for. So as Dr. Jenkins mentioned, my focus is turning the DMZ war zone into a global peace park. So this is currently where the DMZ is located. The size is 4 kilometers, lengthwise 250 kilometers, the width. And in the middle is the military demarcation line that runs all the way across the peninsula. So our project is turning this entire DMZ war zone, it's labeled here in green, into this global peace park where we want the 5th UN office to be. And just to know that the strongest proponents of this project have been 2 individuals, Reverend Sun Myung Moon and his wife, Dr. Hak Jahan Moon. And Dr. Hak Jahan explains in her recent memoir that reads, in his speech given at the United Nations headquarters in New York in 2000, my husband announced our vision of a global peace park in the demilitarized zone. I have recommended that the UN open its 5th office in Korea, specifically in the demilitarized zone on the 30th parallel. This will bring the issue of Korean reunification to the attention of the world's people as no other action can. So just as Reverend Moon recommended, we also see the DMZ as this strategic location to establish a 5th UN office to help bring about a peaceful reunification of the entire Korean Peninsula. So just asking ourselves, or maybe if you ever wondered, why is building a global peace park at this DMZ significant? Well, we just first need to understand the situation of exactly how the DMZ was created. So also asking ourselves, do you know what divided Korea? And the answer is, it's the ideologies. An example of this war of ideologies was the Korean War. Just the background about the Korean War, it was a war between North Korea and South Korea. So communism is this thought that's centered on humankind and materialism, but not on the unchanging God. So the North represented communism and the South represented a free democratic nation. And the fighting ended on July 27th, 1953, when the Korean Armistice Agreement was signed. This agreement created the DMZ to separate the North and the South, but no peace treaty was ever signed, so the two Koreas are still at war, even to today. So Korea became this final endpoint of this confrontation of the ideologies of Godism on one side and atheism on the other. So what happened worldwide in the years following the division of North and South Korea shows how that 38th parallel was truly the front line of battle between democracy and communism. So we can see that Christian values in South Korea, it declined, and communist values quickly spread its influence. So as it stands now, communist countries are not the only ones in danger, but even democratic countries are losing to this ideology and causing problems like what we see in South Korea with the Christian churches. So young people in South Korea are now leaving their churches. So according to this research company, Gallup Korea, in 2015, 69% of South Koreans in their 20s had no religious beliefs. And this is up from 55% in 2005. And we can observe other growing problems in South Korea that's influenced by the communist and materialistic ideology. So just seeing the situation of Korea, Reverend Mrs. Moon felt that very pain is their own. They took action by going to the North to directly address the concern of creating a godless society, even risking their life to bring hope for the reunification of North and South Korea. And they also understood clearly how significant America plays in the success of this very project. So the southern half of the DMZ, it's currently controlled by America. So America can initiate and assume this leading position in turning the DMZ into a peace park and ultimately unite the two Koreas by calling on the UN to establish its fifth office in the DMZ. And with the peninsula still divided, who ultimately has become the victim of communism and fascism? It's the youth, the young people. So we know that the youth has an important role in this project. We know that even great history has been made by young people. So now is this very time that youth can stand up and make this change. But we know that this mission cannot be done by just youth alone. We need to work together with our professors who have this knowledge and experience to resolve this conflict. So that's why our mission is to build a platform for righteous professors and youth to initiate the development of a global peace park in the DMZ, a solution for resolving the conflict on the Korean Peninsula. And this also relates and supports numbers 16 and 17 of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So even up to this very point, we eagerly made the effort to create this groundwork for the project. We had the chance and we traveled to South Korea in 2017 as this youth movement. And together with 120 young people, we held several rallies on peace and prayer in different locations, including the DMZ itself, and also Gwanghwamun. We also had a symposium on the topic of Korean reunification at the National Assembly, which is their Capitol building. So student representatives from Korea, Japan, and America, they all gave heartwarming speeches for their desire of unification. We had the opportunity to meet together and get connected with Dr. Sung Ho Lee, who is the president and co-founder of the DMZ Forum. And we're hoping to work together with other organizations that have that similar goals for reunification. So with all that has been done, we're working to form this platform to encourage these different organizations just to work on this project of turning the DMZ war zone into a global peace park. And locally here in Los Angeles, we established a local chapter of the Professors World Peace Academy, PWPA, as this platform for our professors to work together with the passionate young people of the organization that I'm a part of, the Collegiate Association for the Research of Principles, or CARP for short. So once we unite the power of the youth and with the professors' knowledge and experience that's centered on God's heart, then we can make anything possible. So we're also working with the Young Christian Leadership Conference, otherwise known as YCLC, to unite under the same purpose of bringing peace to this peninsula. So just as that one big step that we're taking and that we have taken is on June 25th of this year, in the summer, we held this unity concert that was organized by the young people. And it's with the same purpose of bringing unification of North and South Korea. So we brought individuals, including Christian pastors, we brought professors, we brought all the youth, and we even challenged ourselves to mobilize the media to get involved. So it became this great foundation to start on the project of building a global peace park. And just that one substantial action that we have already initiated is collaborating together with the famous gospel artist, Pastor Dietrich Haddon, and to record this new song called Light It Up. So if you do have the chance, I do have this QR code, and if you like to ask me later on, I'm more than willing to give it to you. But you can also search it up on YouTube, any social media platform to watch the music video. And we especially wanted to share this with the young people, especially the Korean youth, to have this heart that we can unify this peninsula together, their very homeland. We hope we can continue spreading this awareness and this conflict with everyone's help. Thank you very much for listening to this very project and turning this DMZ war zone to a global peace park. I hope we can all work together for realizing a peaceful world. Thank you very much.
Oh, Mr. Kengo Kawa, we applaud your efforts, and we are really inspired because not only is it such a realistic program where you've already got thousands of key young leaders together with also the National Assembly of Korea and major churches in the United States, and also thought leaders from all over the world for peace. Many are supporting the idea of a peace park in the DMZ, including the president of Korea at this time, President Yoon. There is ongoing discussions on that area. It certainly is great. I've been there many times to the DMZ, and it does something to you when you realize there's no freedom beyond that border, and that is really something. So I have good news. It looks like our video has now been downloaded so that it can be shown whether the internet is supporting us or not. And I'd like to call on Mrs. Angelica Selly, who's the president of the Women's Federation for World Peace, to give us a little more brief introduction to Dr. Anna Grichting-Solder from Harvard University. Angelica, I know you didn't prepare for this, but just too important to introduce you here since you helped introduce us to this wonderful speaker.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Jenkins.
Dr. Selly is complete. EJ, go ahead and show the video.
Well, thank you very much. This is certainly a very inspiring topic, and Dr. Anna Grichting, who is from Switzerland, I believe, she spoke at our conference for a unification of North and South Korea. And she has, her passion has been the environment, to create also parks and in the DMZ zone where people can meet, and very creative ideas. I don't want to say what she's talking about because we will see it, but she worked very closely with our Women's Federation chapters in Europe, Mrs. Carolyn Hanshin. And together they developed yet another angle to that whole topic of a peace park. So just as a brief introduction, I believe the change comes from the ground level, from the grass level, right? As the gentleman was saying, you know, quietly and subtly, we will make the change. So thank you for having her speak.
All right, go ahead. EJ, if you could present this wonderful video.
Greetings, and thank you very much for this invitation. It's a great honor to be invited by Global Women's Peace Network. I'm very honored to be asked to comment and respond to the presentations by Dr. Soon-Mi Choi on the sustainable use of the DMZ and the role of women, and Dr. Guk Hwangbo, Creating Bridges for a Unified Korea. So I will respond taking some of the themes that they have brought up in their presentations and give also some additional points and ideas for discussion. So I will talk about the sustainable use of the DMZ, landscapes of memory, the role of women, building bridges, the 5th UN office, and co-designing the DMZ. So for the sustainable use of the DMZ, I think we should talk about co-creating peace with nature, earth-centric approaches, nature-based design, participatory design, regenerative reuse, and landscape and ecological urbanism. These are the approaches I would propose to use in the planning and design. It's about going from the ego to the eco. It's the new paradigm of the future ways of planning our landscapes and societies, going from human-centric to earth-centric approaches. And this is something that People for Earth Korea and Kum Sil Kang are proposing, is that the DMZ could be granted rights just as rivers, mountains and forests have been granted legal rights. So here we see some of the endangered species and the endemic species in the DMZ, and the idea is that we should really co-create any future visions with all of the species, the animal and plant species, and all the societies and communities. So we see here a map of the flyways. So the DMZ is a corridor, but it's also a space where these cranes come and rest, as we've heard in the presentation earlier. So this is also very important, is the flyways and the corridors, as well as the tiger corridors, for example, that are proposed. And these, whether it's the cranes or the tigers, these are very important symbolic animals as well, and were very important in the shamanic cultures of the Koreas. So when we talk about ecological landscapes of memory, I want to talk about some case studies, the German Greenbelt, the Berlin Wall, and the Cyprus buffer zone, which I've worked on. Borders are the scars of history, said Robert Schuman. He was the founder of the European Union. So here you can see a map of the walls that have fallen, the Roman limes, Hadrian's Wall, the Iron Curtain, the Atlantic Wall, and in orange those that are still remaining. This is the German green belt, which is now proposed as a European green belt, which is where the Iron Curtain was. And so the idea was to create a green belt in the former place of the Iron Curtain. Now it's a cycling path, and it was the longest biological inventory in the history of German nature conservation. So this is an existing case study and a project that was actually realized. In my case, I worked on the Cyprus buffer zone. The idea is going from a military buffer that disconnects communities, preserves nature, to a landscape of memory and a laboratory of ecological planning and human reconciliation. And the idea is that the process of creating this space is also a process of reconciliation. So here are some scenarios that are proposed in the buffer zone. Looking at biological and cultural diversity, looking at the different scales of planning and the different scenarios that we propose in the different areas of the Green Line. Of course, we also have endangered and endemic species in the buffer zone. So one idea is to transform these observation posts of the military into observatories for wildlife. So the idea is really, as much as possible, reusing infrastructures, and it's sort of an archaeology of the conflict, restoring these riparian areas in the buffer zone. So this is a regeneration project. Now we're going to discuss the role of women, peace and environment, women's groups in the DMZ, and the Korea DMZ Peace Incubator that we've been working on with with Women's Federation for World Peace. So in 2004, Wangari Maathai won the Nobel Peace Prize. This was the first time that peace and environment were associated, and it was a woman. It was the Green Belt movement in Kenya. Now in 2007, Women's Federation for World Peace had a meeting with the women from North and South Korea in Mount Geumsang. So this is a precedent on which to build this project, which is the Korea DMZ Peace Incubator, Seeding the Future, a space for women, peace and environment. We presented this at Geneva Peace Week last year. So it's the idea of a participative workshop to co-design a space for women, peace and environment in the DMZ. And it's a physical and virtual space to bring together the women. It's the co-creation of a garden landscape for Korean women from North and South, as well as an international hub for women, peace and environment. And it's also the incubator for the 5th UN office that has been also discussed in the previous presentation. So the idea is this co-creation process, the participatory design process, which is very important. These are just some of the words that came up and proposals from our participatory process about this space that we're discussing. It's about women's, linking women's past and future in Korea. So we have a past where women also were involved in shamanism and in many different ways in society and culture, and looking at social spaces and businesses that could be created in this incubator, one being Korean cosmetics and traditional plants, maybe these organic cosmetics. Here we're actually looking at existing spaces. This is the Swiss and Swedish neutral nation zone in the DMZ, which I visited. So these are existing structures and symbolic spaces in which these projects could be inserted. This is the wall that we created, the Padlet wall, a virtual wall, which you can all come onto and give your ideas for the Korea DMZ Peace Incubator. Here you have the barcode, so anybody can access this and share their ideas. The idea is really the participation. So building bridges, we're talking about ecological bridges, cultural and scientific bridges, and multi-track diplomacy. Of course, the mountain, these sacred mountains where the women met from North and South Korea, these are also bridges, cultural bridges, sacred bridges, traditional celebrations of Thanksgiving, Chuseok in North and South. These are also cultural bridges. These joint excavations between North and South Korean archaeologists, these are also cultural bridges. These are architecture projects which have been proposed in the DMZ with access from North and South Korea. This was proposed by an architect, Jae Eun Cho, dreaming of the earth, a bridge of peace across the DMZ using bamboo structures and with Korea. And also arts, music and dance are very important. So these are projects which have been developed by artists where the soldiers are actually contributing their visions and their dreams. So the 5th UN office is also something that we've been discussing with Universal Peace Foundation and Women's Federation. As we said before, there's some symbolic spaces that could be already, incubators and be reused for these spaces. This was a project by Universal Peace Foundation. And this was in Venice this year. The Venice Biennale said, how will we live together? So the future Assembly of the United Nations should be where the stakeholders are more than human. We need to find novel, imaginative ways of spatially representing diverse, non-human agencies. So this is the idea of how do we build a new UN office with these new paradigms, and we're saying it should be focused on women, peace and environment. So these are just some conceptual frameworks for looking at the DMZ, the idea of working with all the stakeholders, and also proposing the metaverse. This was the Pyeongchang Peace Forum, using the metaverse as a digital space and as a space to actually design the DMZ as a real participatory space for planning and design and for meetings. So this is some cranes that I saw dancing in the DMZ when I visited many years ago with Professor Qui-Gon Kim. And for me, this was very symbolic to see these two cranes dancing, as one from North Korea, one from South Korea. And this dance is really the dance of the future. So I'd like to end here, and I thank you very, very much for your attention. Thank you.
We thank you, Dr. Grisling Solder. It was really such a valuable presentation today, don't you think, everyone? It was delightful and fascinating. You never think about the whole ecosystem of how nature has its own pathways, like the Korean tigers, and how all that should be in harmony. The efforts of women are so important. It opens up the doors of peace. So we thank you again. Thanks to Dr. Sully and the Women's Federation for World Peace. Our next speaker is George Augustus Stallings, who's the founder of Amani Temple African American Catholic Congregation. He was born in New Bern, North Carolina, and he went to a school there as in a Catholic school. and wanted to serve as a Catholic priest. So he attended, when he finished high school, he attended St. Pius X Seminary in Kentucky, received a Bachelor's of Arts degree in philosophy. He was sent by his bishop to the Pontifical North American College in Rome. He earned 3 degrees from the Pontifical University of St. Thomas Aquinas between 1970 and 75. That's a Bachelor of Sacred Theology, Master's degree in Pastoral Theology, and a Licentiate of Sacred Theology. He also came from his education in Rome to serve as a pastor of Our Lady of Peace in Washington, D.C. And he was at the young age of 28 when he first took on that ordination and was named a priest there, and eventually became the youngest senior pastor of a Roman Catholic church when he went to St. Teresa of Avila Parish in Washington, D.C. He became extremely popular and has never lost that popularity. His church grew as he really was able to integrate African-American culture, gospel music, in the Catholic Mass. It was a beautiful thing. He eventually formed his own independent African-American Catholic congregation. He's a great peacemaker. I've been with him myself to the Middle East on many occasions where we were in dialogue with Christians, Muslims, and Jews. We were there in the Palestinian areas. We were there in Gaza, on the Gaza Strip. We were there at the borders trying to bring dialogue between Jews and Palestinians, which was very successful, especially with Muslims and Christians and Jews together. The interfaith components are so important. Also, he's been to the DMZ many times. He's made numerous trips to Korea, and I know the Korean people love and cherish his work as he brings that religious element of peace, which is really the center. God is the author of peace, and peace comes through love. So I want you to welcome the most loving that I know, Archbishop George Augustus Stallings Jr. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Jenkins. And it is a distinct honor and privilege for me to gather with other powerful speakers who have been on this platform today as we focus on the theme reunification of the Korean Peninsula, particularly towards a peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. Korea, South Korea, known as the land of the morning calm. What a powerful label to know that it is a land, a peninsula of the morning calm, and how we so desperately desire to see the peaceful reunification of that peninsula. As our brother pointed out earlier today, as Brother Kenjo Kawa said, that line of demarcation, the 38th parallel, came about as a result of the ending of a conflict between relatives, if you will, between family members. They speak the same language. So many of the customs are the same. And while on next year we will celebrate the 70th anniversary of the conclusion of that war, we are well aware that a lot of laser beam focus no longer illuminates that situation of that conflict, as Kenjo said earlier too, that war of ideology. And we focus more on, especially currently, on what's going on in the Ukraine with the Russian invasion. We continue to look at the Middle East, as Dr. Jenkins stated, been there dozens of times in trying to take a soft power diplomacy approach to the situation in the Middle East. And because of the conflict between North and South Korea, most of the world's attention is not focused on that continuing conflict. And I'm glad that Mr. Kawa pointed out that the two persons who have attempted in every way possible to keep that laser beam focused on the Korean Peninsula have been the Reverend Dr. Sum Young Moon and his beloved wife, Dr. Hak Ja-han Moon. And they have rallied not only Koreans, but an international community around that issue, around visiting the 38th parallel. I, as a member of the American Clergy Leadership Conference, along with Dr. Michael Jenkins, and others, have visited the 38th parallel again dozens of times and prayed, because we believe in the power of prayer to change not only things, but prayer to change people who can change things. And we unite with Doctors Moon to work towards keeping our attention and focus on that Korean Peninsula. I was so overjoyed to hear our brother, Mr. J. Frederick Arment, talk about those international cities of peace that are being established all over the world, and 3 in particular in South Korea, places that we have visited. And he talked about peace. He talked about that river that runs from north down into the south, and hoping to get those cities that are connected in that route of that river to be international cities of peace. And he talked about peace flowing like a river. It reminded me of a song, Mr. Arment, that we used to sing in church. Peace is flowing like a river, flowing out of you and me, flowing out into the desert, setting all the captives free. And that's what we want to do. We want to set the Korean Peninsula free. We want to bring back families. It's amazing. I've heard so many stories. And the many times I've visited Korea, I've been to Korea, South Korea, almost 50 times since 2001. Amazing. And every time I meet family members in South Korea who still have family members and relatives in the north, and the means that the strenuous means that they have to go to connect with their loved ones, it tears my heart apart. I know that I'm an American, and what often happens is that when we see conflict in other parts of the country, or in other parts of the world, we become somewhat innocuous. That's why people like J. Frederick Arment and Kengo Kawai and the other speaker who made that brilliant presentation, doctor made a brilliant presentation, are so much needed and necessary to keep pushing this issue to the front burner, in the forefront. And that's what the Reverend Dr. Sum Young Moon and Dr. Hak Ja-han Moon have done for most of their adult lives, pushing this issue of the peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula to the forefront. And that we as clergy, who have, American clergy particularly, who have visited South Korea and look forward to going to Pyongyang to visit North Korea, that we have not only prayed at the 38th parallel, but we have also sought to bring this matter to the attention of the American church. We have been engaged in what we would call a people-to-people engagement. And the presentation that we heard today, Dr. Jenkins reminded me that we, as the American Clergy Leadership Conference, as other American groups who are concerned about this peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula, need to work in concert with other organizations that are focused on the region. We should definitely be connected with Mr. Arment in the international cities of peace. It's critically important, because in unity, there is strength. And we don't need to have separate entities trying to do something there on the Korean Peninsula. We need to converge. We need to work in concert with each other. As I said, we can often be innocuous or distant from a conflict that is still going on over 5,000 miles away. But I think of the words of the late Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. when he issued that letter to white clergy in Birmingham, Alabama, from the Birmingham jail on Easter Sunday, April the 16th, 1963. He said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, that we are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. And we are all affected indirectly by this continuing conflict in Korea, on the Korean Peninsula, between North and South Korea. And the question is, what are we going to do about it? Do we just simply ignore it? Do we put it on the back burner? Or do we unite together to constantly present this matter to entities and organizations, particularly in the United States of America, who can begin to bring about a resurgence in a concern and focus on the Korean Peninsula? So we as clergy do not direct our appeal to the heads of state of Korea. We do not seek to appeal to their legislative or judicial branches, but we make our appeal to people of conscience, men and women of God, who believe in the spiritual origins of humanity and that which binds us together as children of the one universal family under God. And we believe that if we have faith strong enough, at least from the clerical point of view, we believe that if we have faith strong enough to move mountains, then we can move this barrier. And that's why that ecological system is good, that a peace park is good, all that along the 38th parallel. That can be a reality. Peace is not an abstract. It's not an illusion. Peace is a choice. And we can either choose peace or we will be on the side of conflict, hostility, injustice, enmity, and strife. So let us continue our efforts to work together, to come together as people of faith who can really engage in this people-to-people resolution. And incrementally, step by step, we're going to see a movement or an advancement towards peace. One last thing, I believe that Dr. Hak Ja Han Moon, the mother of peace, here on earth with her husband who's in the spirit world, I believe that they are moving that whole peninsula to a point where we are going to see that 38th parallel dissolved as far as a border, and it will be a peace park. It will be an ecological garden. It will be the new Garden of Eden in our world. Let us pray for that, and let us work together to see that become a reality. Kamsahamnida. Thank you.
Thank you, Archbishop Stallings. I can't thank you enough for your vision and your also practice of the vision of peace always. And we do appreciate, as Archbishop Stallings said, what a well-rounded program we have today. Cities of Peace. And then they had the ecological and all concerned architecture of peace. And then Mr. Kengo Kawa teaching us about the possibility of a peace park right in the DMZ. And that's a most beautiful, beautiful vision. And it will come to pass if we cooperate together. And like you said, Archbishop, we need to come together. We need to really cooperate together, enhance one another's efforts, and multiply it through the people who are ready. People are longing for peace. And that's also God's desire, that there be real peace. And I want to thank Vice President Duggan for this beautiful program. We do a program every Tuesday on peace in the Korean Peninsula from every possible angle. But this was a refreshing kind of new vision of peace. It was not only diplomacy or the actions of negotiation, dialogue, or interfaith alone, but it was really a comprehensive look at very, very soft efforts to really bring respect to all of mankind. Thank you, Vice President Duggan. Your final remarks, please. And thank you to our audience. It's wonderful, wonderful today.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Jenkins. This is a great hope. Young group is coming and bringing up musicians, Korean pop, famous, popular groups, and then women's power, with a motherly heart, especially when I attended WFWP's program, which was held in June. I was very impressed by the WFWP's presentation. And then, of course, our chairman for IAPD, Archbishop Stallings, bringing interfaith leaders. And then when I learned through our friends, Carol Probons, who is working together with Mr. Ernest about the city, creating cities of peace. I think this is a way we can really bring the Freedom Bridge, become Bridge of Peace. And then someday, very soon, we can walk through the liberty, Bridge of Liberty, Bridge of Peace, truly become Bridge of Peace for all mankind. Thank you so much. I am so happy that for all audience who are here on this Zoom, I truly appreciate. Dr. Jenkins, thank you so much for your leadership. Thank you, great. Thank you so much.
Everyone have a wonderful week. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and all the different celebrate Kwanzaa. Let's celebrate all of mankind's diversity and beauty. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
so
Thank you,
much.
Dr. Jenkins.
Have
Thank
a
you.
good
Great
afternoon.
presentation.
Thank
you. God bless you.
Angelica, thank you so much.
Great.
President of
Bye-bye.
WFWP.
Thank you.
Thank
Great
you so
program.
much for coming in. Thank you, Mr. Host. Thank you.
Tomoko.
Yeah, thank you. Kengo.